tonight. I'm going to share my screen so we can look at the content and dive into mental fitness. So let me share that now and make sure that everyone can see. Can you guys see my screen? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So I know everyone's here to talk about mental fitness, and it sounds like, either starting your own business, growing your business, really, this is building a mindset that's ready for owning your business or running business, or really just thriving in today's world is so important. I know we all get lots coming at us. We get lots of emails, meetings, things change, schools close, schools open, a pandemic hits us. There's a lot going on. So the concept of mental fitness can definitely help us all. So today, here's an agenda that we're going to talk through. We'll do some introductions. We'll talk about the definition of mental fitness and some of the research behind it. And then we'll talk through the framework, which talks about two different parts of our brains with the saboteurs and the sage, and really 3 muscles related to that framework that we can strengthen to improve our mindset, and how to shift our mindset from saboteurs to sage. And we'll define those a little bit more. Saboteur is definitely, if you think about self-sabotage, so that word saboteur comes from that idea of how we might self-sabotage. But for right now, I do want to pause and have everyone just set your own intention. You can set it silently for how you want to spend the next hour. I fully believe that we choose how we spend our time, and it'll be different for everyone. I know Megan said, you said you're in the middle of doing some bedtime routine. Other people might be finishing an email, and I think it's up to everyone how they want to spend their time. But just think about what you want to get out of this next hour. Maybe it's deep listening. Maybe it's one tip you're going to take away. Maybe it's time away from everything else in the world, but just set your intention for yourself. Okay. So a little bit about me. I know Rebecca shared some of my history. I grew up in New Jersey and in Madison. I know we're here in Summit now. I live in Summit now. And in college, I studied organizational change. And then I moved to San Francisco to work in corporate retail, as Rebecca shared. And I did that for 15 years. And my company moved me from San Francisco to the New York office about 4 years ago. So I've been back in New Jersey now for 4 years. And I love my time in retail. It was really, it was really fun, exciting, lots of change, lots of growth. It always challenged me. But I really hit this point at around 15 years that I was really starting to feel burnt out. Here's a picture of my husband and my 2 kids. And I really felt like I was missing out on some of their years when they were younger and commuting into the city. So really, I just hit a burnout point. And that allowed me to really connect to my values, which are family, community, and impact. So, one of the big reasons I'm here tonight, and I love working with the Summit Library, is community. So I love building community and helping others, and then having an impact. So I really figured out, how do I want to make my impact in the world? So for me, it was through coaching. So wanting to be a leadership coach. And as a leader in the corporate world, I loved helping my team develop their own skills and reach their goals. So that personal development focus. So now I do that with clients one-on-one and in group settings to help people increase their career fulfillment. So that's really what's important for me. And I know tonight we have a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs. So it sounds like everyone has their passion that they're following, whether it's teaching, food business, marketing, and I just love hearing that people are following their passion. So that's a little bit about me. So I know we did some intros, but I would love if in the chat you could add where you are physically, if you're not in Summit, or if you're in Summit, and what you like to do for physical fitness. And if you didn't share your business, please share your business.
You want them to type it in the chat, Jen?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Is the chat working? Let's see.
Should be.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. So Gina says she's in Rockaway, New Jersey, and she does the bar method.
Hmm.
And then Rachel says, whoa, now it's really quick. Rachel is in Clearwater, Florida, and she's a burnout prevention coach, and she loves kickboxing and Pilates.
Hmm.
Nancy is in Panama City, Panama, and she does Bikram yoga, and the single origin food company is her business.
Hmm. Great. Okay, so we have a couple yoga and or we have one yoga and some Pilates, and then kickboxing. I definitely, Rochelle, I'm getting this image of just like getting all the frustration and stress out. I guess it's not punching, but
Exactly. Yes,
kicking.
it's a great release.
Mhm. Okay, great. Well, thank you all. It's good to have everyone here and from such a diverse area. That's great. So when we talk about mental fitness, the definition that we'll use, and this was created based on the work of Shirzad Chamine, and his definition is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. And I really like to think about this, again, just as we talked about, there's so much going on in our world, and how can we respond positively and be as productive as we can be and as fulfilled as we want to be. And one example to improving our mental fitness, I have the image here of a marathon. And if you are going to run a marathon, you can't just dive in and wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to go run a marathon. You really need to build up to that. You need to practice, you need to train. It takes weeks, months. It takes a while to prepare for the marathon. So you prepare yourself physically to be able to do that. So the idea of mental fitness is the same. Is you can't just wake up and suddenly be, our minds handle everything that's being thrown at us, right? And we've all experienced within the past year, suddenly a pandemic, all these other new things on top of it. And for all of us with our businesses, how do we shift? How do we adjust our business model to handle the change in the world? So it really takes a lot for our minds and our bodies, to think about, okay, how can we handle this? And really thinking about how can we respond in a positive way. So by building up your mental fitness, some of the impacts that we've seen is you can improve your performance. So again, maybe spend less time stressing and trying to, in the what if scenario, and really get into action and perform. Impacts are also peace of mind. So not feeling as stressed and be able to feel more at peace and healthier. And then improving relationships. So this also improves your communication approach and being able to improve how you work with others. So we've definitely seen a lot of positive impacts as a result of focusing on your mental fitness. So this is the framework that Shirzad Chamine created. And so he uses research from 4 different disciplines, really integrated into something that's he's called positive intelligence. So the 4 different elements are positive psychology, neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and performance science. And he's done research with lots of athletes, over 500,000 participants, top CEOs from companies in all of his work. And really in the studies, really combining the benefits of all of those different disciplines into this one framework called positive intelligence. And really, again, it's how can we use our mind and practice, that idea from athletes or from our fitness. If you're, working on building your muscles, how can you also build those mental muscles? So that's the basis for the work that we're going to discuss tonight. Then with that, he really uses the framework of there's 3 core muscles. So just how if you think about building up certain muscles for certain physical activity, Pilates, you do the hundreds, right, to build your core, or yoga, you might do downward dog, or certain moves to build your muscles. So when thinking about our mental fitness, really thinking about 3 different muscles that we want to build. So the first one is intercepting your judge and saboteurs. And we'll go into each of these a little bit more. The second one being activating your sage. And sage might be a difficult term, I think, depending on people's backgrounds. So it's sage meaning like very like wisdom, either maybe your leader within, your inner knowing, or your intuition, or some other words that come up when you think about activating sage. It's that part of you that just knows exactly what to do when you're really confident. And the third muscle being self-command. So we'll go into these three, but these are the three really core parts that help make up this framework of how to improve our mental fitness. So again, if we start to think about our brains with these two parts, there's this one side that are those saboteurs, so that part where we self-sabotage, and the other side where we're our sage, our most wise side. So from the saboteur side, some other words are judges, and we'll talk about this more, but we might be judging ourselves. It's that inner critic where we're so hard on ourselves, or people always say, well, I'm my own worst enemy. I'm not doing the things I should be doing or things I want to be doing, and how you might sabotage yourself. So there's that one part of the brain, and the other part being that sage. So again, that really confident self. I like to think of it like when you're in the zone and you know what you're doing, and you just feel really good, and you just can keep moving and be really high performing. Other ways of thinking about this are your saboteur side of your brain being when you're in survival mode. So obviously back in the cave times when people had to hunt for their and live, for their livelihood, there was definitely more of that feeling of survival mode. And when we're living in that part of our brains, we can still feel that way, even though there's not a bear that's going to jump out at us or a tiger. It really is, but there's stress, right? And that's real that we feel that stress. So how can we get more into that sage mode and feel that empathy? And that saboteur side really use when you're feeling motivated through negative emotions. So some of the emotions associated with this are fear, stress, anger, guilt. And again, when you're acting out of a sense of fear, you're not going to make the clearest decisions you want. Or if you're really stressed, I know sometimes, if I'm very stressed, I might snap at my kids or my husband, and I'm not making the response that I really want to. So how can you instead be in sage mode? So that's where you're motivated from positive side. And some of the emotions associated with that are empathy, curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. And I loved hearing everyone's businesses because I can hear that passion. Like I know Megan had said passion for teaching or passion for food, and like how you can be more in your purpose and less in any of that fear and doubt. And on the saboteur side, from all the research that he found is you might become really successful, right? You might be able to grow your business, to make as much money as you want. You might, if you're in an organization, get promoted all the way up to the level that you want, but it doesn't necessarily bring happiness. And really that's the goal, is how can we not only achieve your goals and achieve success, but also feel happy and fulfilled in the process. So that's really our goal from switching from saboteur to sage side, is to feel more sustained happiness and achieve our goals. So we're going to dive into that first side, the judge and the saboteurs. So, and I know this judge looks a little menacing with the red eyes here, and some people's judges might feel like this. So we'll talk a little bit more about the judge and the harm that the judge can do. And then there's these other characters that we, that we might not have all of these, but we might have some of these that hold us back, again, from achieving our personal goals. So if we think about the judge, and there's three ways that a judge might show up in our life. And the first one is judging ourselves. So again, if it's, this is where maybe that inner critic can hold us back, of saying, okay, you're not good enough. You're, other people are better than you. You shouldn't even try this. Or who are you to be doing this? I know some people call it an imposter syndrome. So really that feeling of like, you're no good. And then beating yourself up for things, or if you make mistakes, or if you do something wrong, really beating yourself up about it. So that would be judging yourself. And then we have judging others. So again, trying to deflect any issues really on others, and really judging others for what they do or don't do. And then finally, judging the situation. And this one, can be a little bit hidden sometimes. But the example I like to think about right now is That comes up, at least for me, a lot is with the pandemic. My kids are home half the day. And sometimes I just get really frustrated. I'm like, I can't do anything. They're home half the day. And things will be better when they go back to school, or things will be better when I have a babysitter. So really that idea of things will be better when, rather than how can you make it better now? That situation of saying, well, I need to make something better and then things will be better, is that idea of the situation. So those are 3 ways that the judge shows up. And so to really bring that home for each of you, I want you to start thinking about your judge and how this shows up for you. Are you hard on yourself, maybe judging yourself, others, or the situation? And what becomes really helpful is to give that judge a name and really just name it. I've had some participants or clients name it's judges. We have Judge Judy, I have Miss Sassy Pants, I have Mean Judge, I have Bob. So there's a couple different names that clients have used, but really give it a name and help personify that judge. This way, when you start to hear that voice in your head, or you start to feel that feeling of like, ugh, you can say, okay, that's Judge Judy. She's here. She's now causing problems. And you can start to observe when that judge is coming up in your life, and really what impact that judge starts to have on you. So I know we're a relatively small group tonight. Would anyone like to share a little bit about a time that they've observed their judge? Does this resonate?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, I feel like with me, I'm one of those people that like I can never do good enough. And then if I do like, kind of give myself, some credit, I feel bad about that.
Mhm.
So like that's something I've been dealing with, lately with, my business. Like when, it was a slow start, I was like, this is a mistake. This is not for me. I'm not going to be successful at this. And then, when things started looking better and I, got to the point where, I had to get the LLC and all that, and I felt like good about myself. I felt like,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
giving yourself too much credit. So I feel like that's kind of the battle I face with that
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Oh,
And that can feel tricky, right? Like a big
yeah,
weight on your shoulders.
yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Who who else who else wants to share about any judging that you feel is going on and what impact it's having on you? No? Okay. All right, we'll keep going. So I think the main thing is to start to notice your judge. Just start creating awareness around what this judging voice, what it sounds like, how it impacts you, and what it's holding you back from. So again, I know like when I was starting my business or sometimes sending a newsletter, some of that can feel like, uh-oh, what if they don't like it? What if I'm worried about what people say about me? And so how to minimize the sound, the voice of that judge and still remain confident. So next we want to talk about saboteurs. So I don't know if anyone's taken this saboteur assessment. It's a free online assessment, and I'll show the link at the end of this so you can know where to find it. But you can take an assessment that helps you identify some saboteurs based on the framework. So again, based on all the research that Shirzad did, there's these different common saboteurs that all of us have. And it gives you these ratings and ranks them. So in this one example, Stickler was the highest. And as you take the assessment, it gives you more information into what each of the saboteurs are and some of the typical behaviors. And again, how it might hold you back. So it's a free assessment. And for me, it was very accurate. And we'll go into this is the example of the Stickler. So the Stickler is a perfectionist and really wants organization and order, wants things punctual, everyone be punctual, wants things neat and in control. and they believe they know the right way and others can't do it that well, so they should do it all. And this is me. This is hands down me. So I am, and I like to say I'm a recovering perfectionist, but this is me. And for a long time, really felt like this was my strength, that my perfectionism really helped me in life, but realized how it's also now holding me back, especially in my own business. How if I'm trying to do everything perfectly, I'm not going to take action. I'm not going to get things done. And sometimes I need to be okay with 80%, or 50%. I think when you're running your own business or trying to make progress, even just in a role within your organization, sometimes taking some action is better than perfectionism. And again, it really depends on your personality, which of these saboteurs. For me, this really relates to me. So I'm able to identify it. Again, giving it a name really helps. So when I catch myself doing habits or actions that relate to this, and like, oh, that's my stickler. My stickler is holding me back right now. My stickler is creating these negative thoughts, and I need to not listen to it.
I'm sitting here nodding my head up and down as you're speaking.
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying.
Thanks. So I often get the question from people about, well, isn't pain good for you? Like some negative emotions help motivate you, right? Like again, for me, that stress of perfectionism would motivate me to make the presentation better, to rewrite the newsletter and make it better. And it really, what we want to talk about is like pain is good for you, but you don't want to stay in that pain for too long. So I really love the example of your hand on the stovetop here. So you want to feel the heat, so to remove your hand and take your hand off the stovetop. But you don't want to leave your hand on there and really get burnt and really get hurt and just dwell in any of that negative emotions and negative feelings. You want to be able to know how to move your hand off the heat quickly. So feeling negative emotions is important, right? We're human. And I fully believe that we should feel and experience the full range of emotions, from sadness and anger, all the way to the positive emotions of joy and happiness. And what can we do from those negative emotions and not sit in them and let them affect us so negatively that we can't move forward and we can't achieve our goals? So we've talked about the judge and the saboteur and really some of those negative emotions. So now we're going to talk about the sage. So the sage, if you remember, lives in the region of the brain associated with positive emotions. That's that clear-headed focus. When you're in that zone, you're able to be creative, you're able to be productive, you're not getting caught up in the what if or the perfectionism or whatever it is that is unique to you about what might be holding you back. You know what you want to do and you do it. And a way to operate more from this mode, so from the sage perspective, is to think about how every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or an opportunity. So I'll say that again. If you think about it to be in sage mode or sage perspective, it's every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or opportunity. And I'm going to share a story in a minute about this. And I think it just really hammers home the idea of sort of how do you shift into this perspective. So it's called the Stallion Story, and I'm going to read it just so I don't get it wrong. And just listen to the words and listen to how it feels and what it makes you think. So an old farmer lives on his farm with his teenage son. He also has a beautiful stallion that he lovingly cares for. The farmer enters his stallion into the annual country fair competition. His stallion wins first prize. The farmer's neighbors gather to celebrate and congratulate him on this great win. He calmly says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Puzzled by this reaction, the neighbors go away. The next week, some thieves who heard about the stallion's increased value steal the horse. When the neighbors come to commiserate with the farmer, they find him again very calm and gathered. He says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Several days later, the spirited stallion escapes from the thieves and finds his way back to the farm, bringing with him a few wild mares he has befriended along the way. To his neighbor's excited rounds of congratulations, the old farmer once again says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" A few weeks later, the farmer's son is thrown off of one of these new mares as he is trying to break it in, and his leg is fractured. As the neighbors gather to commiserate with the farmer, he once again reminds them, who knows what is good and what is bad? The following week, the Imperial Army marches through the village, conscripting all eligible young men for the war that has just broken out. The old farmer's son is spared due to his fractured leg. The neighbors no longer bother to come to the old farmer to congratulate him. By now, they know what his response will be. Who knows what is good and what is bad? So I love this story as it helps us think about what perspective is true. Is one of these situations bad? You know, when the son is thrown off the horse and breaks his leg, is that bad or is that good? And that's where, again, if we think of our framework, if we're thinking about our minds, if we think about it from the saboteur perspective of this is bad, it is bad. And we will sit in that negative feeling and feeling like this is a bad thing that happened and feel really negative about it and mad at the world, mad at the situation, and sit in that place. But if we're able to shift into the sage perspective where it's a gift, and maybe you don't know exactly what the gift is, you know, he didn't know that a war was going to break out and the son would be spared by not being, you know, pulled into the war. But if you're able to think about any other gifts, you know, for example, my daughter actually broke her foot back in January, and we were in Vermont for the month, supposed to be skiing for the month. And we waste, you know, at first I'm like, oh, it's a waste of money. It's a waste of living in Vermont from New Jersey. You know, we rented these skis, all these bad things. And then I realized, you know what? My daughter and I get to sit on the couch and watch movies together. We get to bake together. We get to read together. Like I got some really special time with my daughter on the couch. And so really seeing that time together as a gift instead of from that negative perspective that it's bad. So if we think about, if you think about something in your life, you know, with your business or personally, what's a situation that's really frustrating you right now? And if anyone wants to share, as you think about this, like if there's a saboteur perspective or a sage perspective.
I'll share.
Okay.
Okay. So my car died, like it's dead.
Mm.
And I have to get a new car. So I'm really upset. I drove that car forever, but new car. Now I'm home for 2 weeks. I have no car. And I was like, how am I going to survive for 2 weeks not leaving my house? And so far in the first week, it's been fine. And I'm enjoying myself. It's actually good. And my dog, I'm getting to work on training him because I just adopted a foster. So there's a gift in there for me, as frustrating as it is.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like, yeah, you're like sitting and you like can sense that frustration and difficulty, but you're able to then see the gift and
Yeah.
what can you make out of it each day to make it a little bit better.
Right.
Okay, so if we go back to the 3 core muscles, so we've talked about intercepting the judge and the saboteurs. So as we said earlier, that judge and the saboteurs are those really negative feelings, negative emotions, that inner critic that's really pulling you down. So how do we try to get ahead of it? So we talked about naming that judge, naming those saboteurs to become aware of when they're going to get in your way and intercepting them. So saying, okay, I hear you, judge, but I'm going to stop you. And then activating your sage. So how can you connect to that wise part of yourself? You know, in this case, we're talking about seeing the gift in a situation. And the third muscle that we haven't talked about yet is self-command. So really it's that ability to say, okay, self brain, how can I go from this side, from this judging voice and shift to this sage voice? And how can I do that pretty quickly, right? So when you're in situations and you want to take your hand off the stove, you don't want to stay there any longer. How can you, again, tell yourself, take the hand off the stove. Now let's get into sage mode.
Oh.
So the program talks about a PQ rep. So it's positive intelligence. So, and some people may be familiar with emotional intelligence, which is EQ. So this is positive intelligence is PQ. So you do a 10-second pause to really help strengthen your brain. So one method, and it sounds like I know we have some people that like to do yoga or Pilates, and you'll know that breathing is involved in that. And so how can you use breath work to slow yourself down and just really get into your body and really breathe and drop in out of your head and into your body. And then in the program, we learn other methods. One that I really like that's worked well for me is just feeling the little ridges on your fingertips. And it sounds so silly, those little ridges, but just again, taking 10 seconds to slow down and feel the ridges. And again, as you're getting dings on your computer from maybe another email, a text message, a call, a kid screaming, and you're trying to make an important decision or send an important email to a potential investor, how can you just slow yourself down? And so really the idea of self-command is taking 10 seconds to connect to yourself, to get out of that judging mode, out of your sage mode, out of your saboteur mode and into that sage mode through taking a 10-second break to slow it down. Another method is, again, connecting to your body. So maybe like scrunching up your toes and letting them out, and scrunch them up and let them out. And what I love about some of these techniques is that you can do it without people seeing. So if you're on a video call and maybe you're presenting to a potential client and you're starting to feel stressed and they're asking you some really tough questions, you don't know the answer, you don't have the statistics, you can start to do it. So you can just start scrunching your toes or start feeling your fingertips and no one can tell. And you're really able to help calm your body down and connect more to that sage and really be ready to respond in that confident way that you want to. Again, if we're in that example of a potential client, you're able to respond and you might, have the answer that you want and feel confident rather than being, blurting out something that you really didn't mean to say. So how to slow yourself down and have that command. So the framework works exactly like we've been talking about with these steps. So first, if you're starting to feel those negative emotions, really catching yourself that you're feeling them, saying stop, like acknowledging that you're in saboteur mode. Okay, that's Judge Judy that's here, or this is the stickler, and stop yourself. Then do the PQ reps that we just talked about. So whether it's breathing, touching your fingers, scrunching your toes, some physical way to slow yourself down. And then get into that sage mode. So again, the sage perspective is that every problem can be converted into the gift and the opportunity. And then there's also other sage powers or ways that the sage can help you in those situations. And for example, empathy or curiosity. Empathy is a great way to think about, if you were beating yourself up. I know we've said some of us are really hard on ourselves. So if you're judging yourself, if you like to think of yourself as a kid, so back when you were a little 4-year-old that was so sweet and curious and had the best of intentions, like, would you talk to your 4-year-old self like you talk to yourself now? Or even a friend, if you're telling yourself, you're no good, why would anyone buy from you or purchase your business? Really, would you tell that to a friend, like a good friend of yours? Would you say, your product sucks, your service sucks, no one will buy from you? You wouldn't. So how to, again, turn some of that empathy that you would give to others, how to turn it back to yourself and really thinking of that as the sage mode. Okay, how would I treat my friend or my 4-year-old self? Now, how do I want to treat myself? So I find that really helpful, especially for people that are, judging themselves a lot. So you might be thinking, is it really possible, in those toughest of situations, even, when everything is going wild, can I shift from saboteur mode to sage mode? And the answer is yes. And it takes practice, right? Like everything that you're learning here tonight, studies have shown you'll probably remember 20% of it. You won't remember most of it. Just because we go on about our lives and it's hard to remember everything. Really, it comes in the practice behind it. So if you set that intention of, okay, every day I want to notice my judge. I want to notice when I'm judging. And if you come up with other techniques or support structures to say, okay, I really want to focus on this, how do I practice at it? Just like we talked about with preparing for a marathon. If you're going to practice every day for 6 to 8 weeks or 12 weeks, you're working on it. So similarly with your mental fitness, if you keep practicing it, you'll get better. So I went through this program back in August, and I can definitely tell the difference between when I went through it in August and now. Just from my ability to be able to stay calm and clear. For example, today, my daughter sprained her ankle. My other kid I had to get from school, lots of emails with clients. And I was able to stay focused on the task at hand and what I needed to focus on, one thing at a time. And that I was like, wow, like, again, like I'm making progress. It's working. All this practice is having an impact. But it takes practice, just like preparing for a marathon or, getting better at your yoga practice or your Pilates practice. So if you're interested in building muscles and being a part of the program, I do have the program. It's an 8-week mental fitness program. So there's 7 weeks of videos. There's an app that's on your phone. So you can learn all of the content from the founder, Shirzad Chamine. And then I lead a small group through the program for 8 weeks, 8 sessions, and it's 5 people per group. And we really see increased results when you're meeting with others from the shared accountability. And the program costs $600. But if you find a friend and bring a friend to the program, then you both get $100 off. And there's also the option to add on one-on-one coaching sessions with me if you want to not only do a group program, but also one-on-one work. And I'm starting a program coming up on the week of May 18th, and we would meet once a week. Right now, I was slating the group for 9 a.m. on Tuesdays, but we certainly can adjust the timing if it would work for, if we need a different time. So please don't let that hold you back from not reaching out. And some testimonials from people that, again, went through the program. Some of the key insights that they've said is it really helps them come back to the present. So just as we were talking about, you're not going to dwell on the past of what are all these awful things that have happened to me. You're not going to worry too much about the future of all the what if scenarios, but how do you stay in the present? Mm-hmm. And another participant really felt like the power to actively turn their challenges into opportunities. And then another person really felt the self-acceptance, how this really helped them see that they really needed to, they already had what they needed, focusing on their strengths rather than constantly beating themselves up. So that's the program if anyone's interested in signing up with the program. But whether you are or not, I would love for everyone to think about what you've learned today and what's one insight or action that you want to start practicing to incorporate more of the mental fitness ideas into your life.
I like the different PQ practices that you offered. I try to do like the 10-second or box breathing, but it's nice to have something more physical to do. So looking forward to incorporating those in those moments.
Okay. And Nancy, what will help you remember to incorporate that?
It's a good question. I think I always take a pause though before I react. So I think hopefully in that pause, I'll go, what can I do now? You know, and hopefully I'll reach for a physical thing. Because sometimes it's not enough breathing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I might offer, you know, if you're always sitting maybe near a computer, a certain spot, you could put something like a Post-it note that says like, you know, do a PQ rep, or, you know, or write it on a note card, or an image of something that will remind you. Like if you put an image as the, like on the back of your phone or your desktop or your computer to help remind you, okay, how do I, this is how I want to connect. If I want to slow down, and, you know, if it is feeling your fingers, maybe a picture of a hand or something, if it's not words, that can help bring you back to that. So you, as a reminder.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I never even thought about that. Like even putting something up. That's so cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find so many times when all of us are trying to make changes in our lives, we need support, right? And reminders. Otherwise we will forget. So it's like, how can you create a support structure like that? Either a picture or a post note or different things to help us make the changes we want.
It's like the power of repetition, you know, and just seeing it there, like it is going to be a constant reminder, even when I'm not actively using it, you know?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where in the program, it does have an app. An app prompts you 3 times throughout the day to say, okay, time for a 2-minute break, do a 2-minute break, pause, and it has a coaching challenge that it talks you through, again, to connect you back to slowing down. So that's one benefit that the app does. But if you're not interested in the app, then it's like, how can you build that in for yourself? I know some people put reminders on their calendars, like, okay, at 10 a.m., I'm going to take a 2-minute break or a 10-minute break and walk around the block, some way to help get recentered. Thanks, Nancy, for sharing. Who else? What's one insight or action you want to start practicing? No one else? Okay. Well, some next steps, if you're interested in the group, you can email me. And again, if the dates or times didn't work, but you're interested, please reach out. My email is jenmilnes@gmail.com. And you can reach out with any questions. If you want to take the assessment for the saboteurs to figure out which ones your saboteurs were, the website is positiveintelligence.com/assessments, and you'll find the saboteur assessment there. I also offer a free coaching session for anyone that wants to experience what it's like to coach one-on-one with me. So you can sign up on the Calendly link here. And I would love to, you know, work with any of you and dig in further to support you. But really at this time, then it's just open for any questions about the framework, about mental fitness, anything. I'll stop sharing. Let's see, is there anything in the chat? Ellen, it looks like you joined from Summit, a software developer in training. Welcome. What other questions?
I can only say how wonderful it is because I do the practice already, and it's just, it was life-changing for me. It really was. It made such a difference. I couldn't imagine going through what I've been going through now if I didn't have this to keep me focused and looking at the right side of things. Made a difference.
Thanks, Rochelle.
You took the program?
I took it last, I think November is when I finally took it, and I still practice it.
You probably have to practice it your whole life, right?
Well, you know what? Just like you go to the gym, right? This is the gym 3-4 times a day. And I find it's easier. I don't even need the gym sometimes now. I do long walks twice a day. I'm PQing the whole time. I love it. It definitely helps keep me more. I'm pretty strong, so it definitely made a difference for me.
And I do think it takes a long time. You know, all of us have, from now until whatever age we're at now, have been a certain way, right? You've had this certain judge, we've had these saboteurs, Again, I love my parents, but they put a lot of high pressure on me to be a high achieving perfectionist. And again, it really helped me for a great part of my life, but it's not serving me right now. So, I mean, that's many decades that it took for me to, that I lived that way. So now going forward, how do I undo some of that, because it's holding me back from achieving my goals? So it does take a while, and it is a practice, and I do keep going back to it. And I know the founder, Shirzad, he always talks about, like, in what's it called? Karate, like the black belt, the different color belts that you're building of, again, you're getting better and better with practice. So building up to a black belt where you can handle even the most difficult situations. So I wouldn't say I'm a black belt yet, but working towards it eventually. Okay.
Especially negative thoughts. I
Mhm.
mean, I saw a TED talk and it was a psychologist speaking, and she said, we pay more attention to negative, like
Mhm.
like one negative comment about something that you're doing or can have more of an impact, unfortunately, than than positive emotions or thoughts.
No one talks about positive stuff. They only talk about negative stuff.
Mhm.
It seems.
Yeah.
Jen, I have to go because I have another call at 8.
Okay.
So thank you so much. This was so wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Great
Thank
refresh.
you, Jen.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
And Rebecca, to that point about the negative thoughts, yeah, like if we sit in that one negative thought rather than the other 10 positive thoughts we've heard, like we will just dwell and not move forward. Whereas if we're able to say, okay, well, that's one negative, but here were 10 positive thoughts or reviews or whatever, how can I focus on those instead? And
Right.
that can help propel us forward.
Right.
So,
That's
okay,
hard. That'll
it
be
is
hard,
hard.
but yeah, but valuable,
Yeah,
worthwhile.
yes. All
Thank
right.
you very much, Jen, for
Thank
that
you.
wonderful presentation, and thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you all have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.